The Pacific sun burned white-hot over the dense, tangled jungles of Bougainville, November 1943. For the men of the 1st Marine Division, every rustling leaf and shadowed thicket held lethal potential. Japanese snipers, masters of camouflage and patience, had turned the landscape into a terrifying shooting gallery, pinning down advances and claiming lives with chilling regularity. Among these Marines was Corporal Tony Stein, a 23-year-old toolmaker from Dayton, Ohio. He moved with focused intensity, his eyes constantly scanning the impossible green wall. The crack of a distant rifle, another Marine falling. These events were shaping a grim resolve within him. Stein knew standard-issue weapons were often ineffective in this chaotic, close-range environment. A different tool was needed for this horrific task. The jungle itself seemed to breathe with menace, the humidity clinging to the men like a shroud as they navigated a network of invisible, deadly lines of fire. Tony Stein was not a stranger to machinery or innovation. His civilian trade had honed a practical, problem-solving mind. He watched the tactics of the enemy snipers, noting their use of elevated positions in the towering coconut palms and dense jungle canopy. The Marines' M1 Garins were superb battle rifles, but in the close quarters of the jungle, their length could be a hindrance, and their report was loud and distinctive. Stein conceived a need for a weapon that was fast-handling, devastating at short range, and with distinct sound that might confuse the enemy. He began to formulate an idea, a solution forged not in an armory, but in the desperate crucible of frontline necessity. This was not about theory, but raw survival and retaliation. The memory of fallen friends lent a fierce urgency to his mental calculations, as the oppressive heat seemed to amplify the ever-present stench of damp earth and decay. His solution was both ingenious and unorthodox. A lightweight, rapid-fire machine gun, small enough to be carried and fired by one man. The weapon he had in mind was the Browning M2 aircraft machine gun, a .50 caliber beast originally designed for American fighter planes and bombers. Salvaged from wrecked or damaged aircraft, these guns were occasionally available as surplus. Stein, utilizing the military procurement system in a way never intended, managed to essentially mail order one. He submitted a formal request through channels, a baffling piece of bureaucracy that, astonishingly, resulted in the delivery of the massive machine gun to the front lines. To the bewilderment of his superiors and comrades, Stein now possessed a weapon of extraordinary power, utterly out of place in the context of a jungle infantryman. The Browning M2 aircraft model was a fearsome instrument of war, designed to tear apart aluminum airframes, not merely human bodies. Chambered in the massive .50 BMG cartridge, its rate of fire was staggering. However, in its aircraft configuration, it was utterly impractical for ground use. It had no stock, no traditional sights, and was fed from a heavy, fixed ammunition box. Stein, the toolmaker, immediately set to work adapting the weapon. Using scrap metal and sheer ingenuity, he fashioned a crude but functional bipod from a Japanese soldier's backpack frame. He crafted a simple rifle-style stock so he could shoulder the monstrous gun. Most notably, he replaced a standard barrel with a lighter one from a crashed American fighter plane, making the weapon marginally more portable. His most critical modification addressed ammunition. The .50 caliber rounds were linked in long belts, cumbersome for a man moving through thick jungle. Stein ingeniously created a carrying system using a modified parachute harness. He would sling the heavy belt over his shoulder, feeding it into the weapon's receiver as he moved and fired. The final, iconic touch was the weapon's muzzle brake. He salvaged one from a wrecked fighter, which helped control the ferocious recoil and directed the deafening blast and signature flame sideways. When he was finished, he had created something entirely new, a handheld, fully automatic .50 caliber machine gun. He dubbed his creation the Stinger. It was ugly, improvised, and brutally effective. On November 17, 1943, Stein's company was ordered to attack Japanese positions near the Torquay River. The advance was immediately met with a storm of fire from expertly concealed snipers and machine gun nests. Marines dug for cover behind rotting logs and in rain-filled shell holes, the attack stalling before it had truly begun. The sharp, distinctive crack of the Japanese Arisaka rifles seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was in this moment of crisis that Stein introduced his unique weapon to the war. He moved forward, not with a cautious crawl of the others, but with a determined low advance. The jungle canopy filtered the sunlight into a dappled, shifting pattern, making every shadow a potential hiding place for death. Stein located the first sniper's position high in a palm tree, a faint movement betraying the camouflaged gunman. He shouldered the stinger, its crude stock pressing against his cheek. He squeezed the trigger. The sound was cataclysmic, utterly foreign on a battlefield, a deafening, ripping roar accompanied by a foot-long tongue of flame from the muzzle. The .50 caliber rounds, capable of piercing light armor, tore through the palm tree's trunk as if it were paper. The upper portion of the tree and the sniper with it crashed down to the lower canopy in a shower of splintered wood and fronds. The effect was instantaneous and shocking. The Japanese fire from that sector ceased abruptly, and the Marines nearby stared in awe at the devastation. Emboldened, Stein became a one-man assault force. He discarded his helmet for a brown baseball cap, allowing for easier movement and hearing. He kicked off his bulky boots, preferring to fight in his socks for better traction in the mud. Thus attired, he began a relentless 4-day hunt. He would advance to the main line, using the dense foliage as his own cover. The Stinger's incredible firepower allowed him to suppress position single-handedly. When he suspected a sniper's nest in a log or a bunker, he would simply hose the area with .50 caliber rounds, the bullets shredding vegetation and splintering cover to reveal and eliminate the occupants. His method was one of overwhelming, brute force applied with surprising mobility. The psychological impact of the Stinger was as powerful as its physical devastation. To the Japanese soldiers, this new weapon was a terrifying mystery. The sound was unlike any American machine gun they knew. Its report was a roaring, ripping thunder that echoed strangely through the jungle valleys. The visual signature, the massive muzzle flash, made it seem as if a piece of artillery was moving through the undergrowth. For the Marines, the Stinger's roar became a rallying cry. Wherever the terrifying sound erupted, they knew Stein was at work, clearing a path. He became a legend in real time, a figure of both awe and immense reassurance amidst the chaos. Stein's tactics were brutally straightforward. He would identify a target area, often by drawing fire or observing where his comrades were being hit from. Then, cradling the Stinger, he would rush forward in a low, weaving sprint, the ammunition belt swinging from his harness. Upon reaching a firing position, he would unleash short, controlled bursts. The .50 caliber rounds had a flat trajectory and immense kinetic energy, allowing him to shoot through multiple trees or penetrate reinforced positions that would stop rifle rounds cold. After neutralizing position, he would immediately displace, knowing the sound and flash would draw mortar fire or counterattacks. On the second day, the company faced a deeply entrenched complex of bunkers interconnected by tunnels. Marine rifle grenades and bazookas had little effect on the thick, coconut log reinforcements. Stein, surveying the situation, coordinated with his squad, under covering fire. He maneuvered to a flanking position where he had a clear line of sight to one of the bunker's firing slits. From a distance of barely 100 yards, he opened fire. The stream of armor-piercing rounds chewed through the logs and earth, silencing the machine gun within. He repeated this action at 2 other apertures, effectively blinding and neutralizing the strong point and allowing the infantry to assault and clear it. His endurance was as remarkable as his firepower. For 4 days, with little sleep and under constant threat, Stein operated at a frenetic pace. He was not just a shooter. He was a scout, a pathfinder, and a one-man morale booster. He repeatedly exposed himself to draw fire, revealing enemy positions. On several occasions, he used the Stinger to cover the rescue of wounded Marines trapped in no man's land, his suppressive fire keeping enemy heads down as corpsmen dashed into the open. The weight of the gun and ammunition was tremendous, yet he seemed fueled by a combination of adrenaline, skill, and profound determination to protect his fellow Marines. The environment itself was a relentless enemy. The Bougainville jungle was a steamy, foul-smelling maze of razor-sharp kanai grass, clinging mud and thickets of vines. Insects swarmed constantly, and every puddle could harbor disease. Stein, fighting in his socks, was as much battling this terrain as the Japanese. The physical toll was immense, but the mental focus required was absolute. A moment's lapse in observation, a misstep in reading the jungle signs, could mean instant death from a hidden sniper he had not detected. His success was a testament to an almost preternatural sense of situational awareness honed by desperation. By the third day, stories of a man with a machine gun that sounds like a cannon had spread up and down the Marine lines. Officers who initially questioned the practicality of Stein's weapon now relied on its unique capabilities. He was often called upon to break stubborn points of resistance that had stalled the broader advance. His approach became a template for aggressive counter-sniper tactics, using supreme firepower to destroy the sniper's cover entirely, rather than simply attempting a precise shot against a concealed foe. It was the antithesis of a sniper's patient craft, a philosophy of demolition. The Japanese snipers, highly disciplined and patient, found their tactics nullified by this unprecedented weapon. Their carefully constructed hides and trees, or logs, offered no protection. A standard infantry rifle duel required them to expose only a small part of their body for a brief moment. Against Stein, any exposure to their position, however slight, invited a hailstorm of high explosive and armor-piercing rounds that turned their cover into a deadly storm of splinters and shattered earth. The psychological warfare was potent. The fear of this unknown weapon began to unnerve even the most seasoned Japanese troops in the area. On the fourth day, during a push toward a critical trail junction, Stein's company was caught in a deadly crossfire from 3 well-concealed sniper teams. Casualties mounted quickly. Stein, assessing the battlefield, identified one sniper in a tree to the left and another in a shell crater to the right. Moving with a squad for support, he engaged the tree sniper first, his burst severing a major branch and sending the enemy soldier tumbling to the ground. He then pivoted, dropping to one knee, and fired a long burst into the crater, churning the earth and water into a bloody mire. The third sniper, likely shaken, fired wildly and missed, revealing his position in a thicket, which Stein promptly obliterated. His final confirmed tally on that fourth day was his 11th enemy sniper eliminated. The number, however, fails to capture the broader impact. Each sniper he killed represented a node of resistance removed, a section of the battlefield made safer for Marines to maneuver. Each bunker or machine gun nest he suppressed allowed the line to advance dozens of precious yards. His actions directly contributed to momentum of his company's attack during a critical phase of the Bougainville campaign, saving an untold number of American lives through his aggressive, offensive posture. The sheer physical strain of operating the Stinger was immense. The .50 caliber Browning, even modified, weighed over 80 pounds with its ammunition harness. Firing from the shoulder or the hip generated tremendous recoil forces, punishing Stein's body with each burst. His shoulder is bruised and swollen. His ears rang constantly from the concussive blasts, and the acrid cordite fumes clung to his clothes and lungs. Yet, he refused to relinquish the weapon or slow his pace. It had become an extension of his will, the tool with which he was carving a measure of safety for his brothers-in-arms from a hostile landscape. Tony Stein's background as a toolmaker was the invisible foundation of this battlefield success. Where others saw an aircraft weapon unfit for the infantry, he saw a system of components that could be re-engineered. His modifications were not elegant, but they were profoundly functional, born of a workshop mindset applied to a life or death problem. This ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome available resources embodied the very spirit of the American combat engineer and the resourceful citizen soldier. He was not a trained armorer. He was a craftsman at war. The legacy of the mail-order rifle is multifaceted. Tactically, it demonstrated the value of a squad automatic weapon with overwhelming stopping power, a concept that would later influence the development of light support weapons. In the immediate sense, it proved that individual initiative, when coupled with practical skill and courage, could alter the dynamics of a small unit battle. Stein's story became a beacon of inspiration, a testament to the idea that one determined Marine, with the right tool and the fortitude to use it, could make a decisive difference. For his actions over those 4 incredible days, Corporal Tony Stein was recommended for and later awarded the Medal of Honor. The citation would detail not only his sniper kills, but his repeated acts of valor in rescuing wounded under fire, his fearless leadership, and the decisive role he played in breaking the enemy's defensive grip on that sector of Bougainville. The weapon itself, The Stinger faded from history after Stein's evacuation from the island. Its ultimate fate unknown, lost to the jungle or perhaps repurposed for parts. Stein's war was not over after Bougainville. He returned to the United States, was commissioned as a second lieutenant, and felt a powerful duty to return to his men. He shipped back to the Pacific, joining the 5th Marine Division for the invasion of Iwo Jima. It was there, on the black sands of that volcanic fortress, that he would make the ultimate sacrifice, leading his rifle platoon against a fortified position on D-Day, February 19, 1945. He was killed by enemy machine gun fire. The ingenuity and courage that defined him on Bougainville were with him to the end. The narrative of the mail-order rifle transcends a simple tale of marksmanship. This was not a sniper duel of patience and precision, but violent, aggressive counteroffensive waged with a weapon of breathtaking power. Stein redefined the terms of engagement. In a theater where the enemy often controlled the jungle, he brought a tool that allowed him to dominate it, if only for a few crucial days. He turned the tables, making the hunters the hunted through sheer, applied force. Historians and military analysts later reflected on the symbolic nature of Stein's weapon. It represented American industrial might and ingenuity in its rawest form. A heavy machine gun designed for the air, adapted on the ground with scrap, and wielded with devastating effect by a single determined man. It was a perfect, if brutal, metaphor for the wider war, the ability to innovate and apply overwhelming force to solve complex, entrenched problems. The story also highlights the often overlooked reality of battlefield innovation. Official procurement and development cycles are slow, but war is immediate. Soldiers like Stein, living the problem every minute, frequently devise the most practical solutions. The mail order request was a bureaucratic fluke, but his modifications were the work of a master craftsman under fire, demonstrating that the most important weapon in any arsenal is the adaptive mind of the warrior. In memorializing Tony Stein, we remember not just a hero, but an archetype. He was a citizen called to service, the tradesman who applied his craft to combat, the comrade who risked everything to protect others. His 4-day saga with the Stinger is a concentrated episode of extraordinary heroism, a bright, fierce flame that burned against a dark backdrop of a long and brutal campaign in the Pacific. The jungles of Bougainville have long since reclaimed the battlefield. The coconut grove stands silent, the foxholes and bunkers smoothed over by time and growth. But the echoes of that ripping .50 caliber roar seem to linger in the historical memory of the Marine Corps. It stands as a sound of defiance, a noise that signaled not just destruction, but salvation for men pinned down around it, a promise that the initiative could be seized, even in the most desperate circumstances. Stein's Medal of Honor citation hangs today as a formal record of his valor, but the tale of the mail-order rifle adds a rich, human dimension to the parchment and ink. It is a story of practicality, of a man looking at a challenge and literally assembling his own answer. It underscores that heroism is not just about courage under fire, though that was abundant, but about the application of intellect and skill in the service of others in the most dire moment imaginable. The weapon he created was never standardized, never mass-produced. It was a singleton, a one-of-a-kind instrument of war crafted for a specific moment and a specific man. In that sense, the Stinger was as unique as the Marine who wielded it. Its legacy is inextricably tied to Tony Stein's own, a brief, brilliant flash of ingenuity and courage that changed the course of battle and saved countless lives, a powerful reminder of the impact one individual can have when driven by duty and compassion for his fellow soldiers. Thus, the account of the mail-order rifle endures, not as a footnote in ordnance history, but as a stirring chapter in the chronicle of human valor. It is a story of how a toolmaker from Ohio, through determination and brilliant improvisation, turned an aircraft machine gun into an instrument of deliverance for his comrades, accounting for 11 enemy snipers in 4 days and forging a legend in the white-hot fury of the Pacific War, a testament to the enduring spirit of innovation and sacrifice that defines the finest traditions of the United States Marine Corps.